Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our new show this week in Israel, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed.
Nikki Haley's visit to Israel is making waves, although the United States ambassador to the UN has been one of the strongest supporters of Israel in the Trump administration. She's now saying that her boss, United States President Donald Trump, sees a Jerusalem embassy move as part and parcel of an Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Her announcement that the United States is reviewing its participation in the UN Human Rights Council is also music to the ears of most Israelis. Haley's trips to the borders of the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip in the south and Hezbollah-controlled Lebanon in the north are sending a strong message to the world about the nature of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Yesterday, she met with the Palestinian Prime Minister in Ramallah, although she did not meet with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. For Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Haley's actions at the UN have proven her to be a strong friend of Israel.
Thank you for all your help in standing up for Israel, standing up for the truth, which is standing up for America. Actually, I think it's standing up for the UN, as it was originally conceived.
The turmoil in the Middle East is continuing to escalate. Turkey has just approved a bill to send thousands of soldiers to Qatar. Of course, this follows Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and other Sunni Arab states breaking off relations with the pariah-turned-Gulf state. All Qatar's land borders are now closed, and as Saudi Arabia and the UAE were its biggest food suppliers, it's now looking for other countries to import food from. Just yesterday, the Turkish parliament passed legislation to deploy troops to its military base in Qatar in a show of support with its ally. Of course, Saudi Arabia is saying that if Qatar wants good relations with its neighbors, it must stop supporting Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. According to Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir, Qatar's continued financial and diplomatic support for these Islamist groups undermines the stability of the Palestinian Authority and Egypt. Now, Hamas is on the defensive.
نحن نستغرب ونستهجن في حركة حماس أن يصدر في مثل هذه الأوقات تصريح يؤلب على حركة حماس ويدفع بعض الدول والاتجاهات بمقاطعتها وحصارها في وقت تثبت حماس للقاصي والداني أنها ملتزمة بقضيتها الوطنية لا تتدخل في شؤون أحد تقاوم الاحتلال وجهتها القدس.
Israel has not gotten involved in this conflict, but more pressure on Hamas can't be a bad thing from their perspective. Still, it's not all just about Qatar's support for Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. Their closeness to Iran and their Al Jazeera satellite channel with its arguably pro-jihadi line are also unacceptable to most Sunni Arab states. After gunmen attacked the Iranian parliament in Tehran yesterday, United States President Donald Trump put out a statement which is drawing praise from some and condemnation from others. In a two-sentence press release issued yesterday afternoon, Trump wrote that we grieve and pray for the innocent victims of the terrorist attacks in Iran and for the Iranian people who are going through such challenging times. But striking a hawkish note, he then added that we underscore that states that sponsor terrorism risk falling victim to the evil they promote. 12 Iranians died as a result of the attack on parliament and a religious shrine, and ISIS has reportedly claimed responsibility for both. Incidentally, the president's statements coincide with a Senate vote to impose new sanctions on Iran over its continued supply of weapons to terrorist groups and its ballistic missiles program. The Trump administration has been taking a hard line against Iran's promotion of terrorism throughout the Middle East and the world, to the pleasure of Israel, of course, which has long been sounding the alarm about the Iranian nuclear threat. On the other hand, for Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, one of the supporters of Barack Obama's controversial Iran nuclear deal, she says that Iran has elected a moderate government and that it's time to give Iran the opportunity to recover and set a new course. The Iranian foreign minister agrees, calling Trump's statements repugnant.
The United States is threatening to leave the UN Human Rights Council if it doesn't stop attacking Israel. That's all according to the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Right now, the council has a specific agenda item specifically aimed to attack Israel. Haley is saying she's not trying to end criticism of the Jewish state, but that it's simply not fair to have a specific mission to attack a country, especially when there are other nations committing human rights violations across the world. She's singling out North Korea, Iran, and Syria as the world's leading human rights violators, but the whole council is at fault.
Being a member of this council is a privilege, and no country who is a human rights violator should be allowed a seat at the table. Finally, it's hard to accept that this council has never considered a resolution on Venezuela, and yet it adopted 5 biased resolutions in March against a single country, Israel. It is essential that this council address its chronic anti-Israel bias if it is to have any credibility.
Israeli Deputy Minister for Diplomacy Michael Oren is happy with Haley's move, but he believes the council is too biased to be reformed. He says U.S. presence there only serves to legitimize an inherently anti-Semitic organization. But Israeli ambassador to the UN in Geneva, Raz Shechter, is tweeting that Israel, the U.S., and other states that care about human rights can make HRC fairer and more efficient. The U.S. has just said that in order to bring about a comprehensive peace deal, both Israelis and Palestinians will be forced to compromise. ILTV's Aaron Porst joins us in the studio with more. Aaron, what compromise are they talking about?
Well, after Trump's recent trip to Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and he met with both of the leaders, what he's starting to notice, if he didn't already know this before, was that the demands coming from both sides are not anywhere near in sync. And so, again, having gone back, I
believe... eye-opener.
I know, right? So the White House, I believe, at this point, Washington is seeing, we're still optimistic, we're still positive about forming a peace deal, but we're going to have to be more realistic in our expectations. I think that's what we're seeing right now.
All right, well, let's check out your report.
In a press conference held yesterday, State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert refused to address UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' statement lamenting 50 years of Israel's occupation in the West Bank. Instead, she took the time to reiterate the United States' support for reaching a comprehensive solution to the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Recently, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was quoted as saying that President Trump has been very forceful with both Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas during his trip to the region last month. Yesterday, however, during a special event at the Knesset commemorating the 1967 Six-Day War, Netanyahu said that no settler will be uprooted in any final peace deal with the Palestinians. He went on to say that President Trump is sticking to traditional peacemaking formulas influenced by 50 years of propaganda, and that, quote, "I am doing what is necessary to protect the Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria. We will continue to develop it, and we will not bring a tragedy upon the settlements if we agree to work together. This is the most important thing, to work together," end quote. For the most part, Israeli settlements in the West Bank are considered illegal under international law, and they're located in areas that the Palestinians would want for a future state. At the Latrun Memorial Ceremony yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also pledged that Israel will always retain security control over the border with Jordan. Netanyahu is saying that Israel seeks a real peace that will last for generations with its neighbors. For that reason, he says Israel will retain security control over the territory west of the Jordan Valley. Previous proposals for an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians have called for Israel to cede administration of the Jordan Valley to some sort of international peacekeeping force. But Netanyahu's words, as well as his pledge that Israel will defend itself by its own, suggests that this is off the table for him, at least for now. Israel's withdrawal from the Sinai Peninsula, for example, in 1956, was conditional on U.S. pledges to keep the Straits of Tiran open to Israeli ships, a pledge the United States did not keep. There are rumors that U.S. President Donald Trump wants Israel to cede parts of the northern West Bank to the Palestinian Authority while retaining security control. Reportedly, Netanyahu is against this concession as well.
Now, speaking about compromises, after Israel evacuated the Amona outpost in the West Bank in February, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he'd build a new settlement for some of the families. Now it looks like he's finally following through on that promise, and ILTV's Aaron Porst is still with us here to tell us more. So what is so surprising about this move?
Well, the big surprise is that it really goes against all of the promises that the Prime Minister has made to the American government and to Donald Trump, to President Trump. In addition to that, it really goes against what the international community tends to consider as a consensus, with that the West Bank settlement is illegal and is an occupation. So, Netanyahu, we're seeing Bibi in this kind of stuck in this rock and a hard place kind of situation between pleasing his supporters and pleasing his allies.
All right, let's check out the report.
Along with 1,500 other housing units in the West Bank, the first steps to building a new settlement have been approved by the Defense Ministry, and this will be the first new government-authorized settlement in 25 years. When the new town of Amichai is built, around 40 families who were expelled from Amona will have a new home. But the Amona evacuees are skeptical. Their spokesman says that this is just another step in a long and bureaucratic road. It will not provide a short-term solution for the children in the coming school year. An Israeli official says that the building plans have already been discussed with the Trump administration, and the government doesn't expect any diplomatic trouble to arise from the new construction.
All right, tensions are heating up in Jerusalem's holy basin as the Muslim holy month of Ramadan enters its second week. And now 5 members of a Hamas-linked terror group have been arrested for planning to carry out attacks on the Temple Mount. Over the past few months, the Shin Bet Security Service has been carrying out an operation against a Jerusalem-based terror group. Members of the Al-Shabaab Al-Aqsa group were reportedly stocking weapons at the Temple Mount and inciting violence in order to deter visitors. The holy site is the location of the destroyed Jewish First and Second Temples, and it's the holiest site in Judaism. It's also home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest site. Under the current status quo, Jews are banned from praying on the Temple Mount, while during Ramadan, thousands of Muslim pilgrims fill the space. And a Muslim cleric is telling his Al-Aqsa audience that Jews are the masters of the world and its corruptors. Sheikh Muhammad Ayed told his audience that Jews cause all of the killing, all of the slaughter, and the destruction everywhere. For Israeli security forces hoping to keep the peace during Ramadan, Ayed's hateful rhetoric is a serious issue. In other Hamas news, the new leader of the terror organization in the Gaza Strip has traveled to Cairo to meet with Egyptian security officials. Yahya Sinwar's visit to Egypt represents the first high-level meeting between the de facto government of Gaza and the neighboring country in months. Under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Egypt has taken a hard line towards Hamas, a terror group that Sisi sees as essentially an offshoot of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood. According to a Hamas spokesman, Sinwar and his delegation will push for the opening of the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza. They intend to discuss the humanitarian situation in Gaza resulting from the Egyptian and Israeli blockades. Hamas has been making conciliatory gestures toward Egypt, and last month it dropped its association with the Muslim Brotherhood, claiming to be a Palestinian movement in a shift away from a pan-Islamic stance. If Jesus were to walk across the Galilee now, he might have an easier time, but it's not necessarily for a good reason. Since February, the Galilee, known in Israel as the Kinneret, has been at its lowest level in a century. The body of water received around 10% of its average rainfall this year. A spokesman for the Israel Water Authority says this is the first time in 97 years that the Galilee has lost water, and it's causing major ecological problems across Israel. The Galilee is a source of the lower Jordan River, which is flowing far below its seasonal average of 7 cubic meters a second. And while Israel gets most of its water from coastal desalination plants, it still relies on the Kinneret for agriculture. Beyond that, the lake is a source for the Dead Sea, which has shrunk drastically over the last few decades, resulting in the closure of beaches and more ecological damage. Israel has an agreement to send millions of cubic meters of water to the Dead Sea, but with the Kinneret struggling, it's unclear if they'll be able to meet their commitments.
The United Kingdom is under siege as following 3 major terror attacks in as many months, 2 kosher restaurants in the city of Manchester have now just been hit by arson attacks that police are calling anti-Semitic hate crimes. On Friday night, surveillance cameras recorded 2 people throwing a firebomb at the Tam Deli. Fortunately, the weapon failed to ignite, prompting the attacker to throw a stone through Tam's front window instead. This is the second time arsonists have targeted the Tam Deli, too. A gasoline bomb was thrown at the restaurant just last May. The JS restaurant, however, wasn't so lucky. Early in the morning on Tuesday, vandals forced open a window at the restaurant and poured a flammable liquid inside, causing a fire. Thankfully, emergency services arrived minutes after the fire had sparked, and the damage was less serious than it could have been. The JS restaurant has posted photos of the scene on its Facebook page, with the owner writing a message of thanks to the local police and CST for the hours they've spent going through CCTV footage to put a picture together of the attack. Police are increasing patrols in the area and have assembled an investigation team to work on these linked crimes.
It's been 2 days since the horrifying terror attack in London that left 7 dead, but the Israeli Prime Minister is still speaking out to comfort the British and send a resolute message to terrorists.
In recent hours, another terrible attack was launched on innocent people in the heart of London. We condemn it. We send our condolences to the British people, and we pledge our commitment to fight this scourge that knows no bounds.
On Saturday night, Islamic terrorists in London killed 7 people in the London Bridge area. The attackers began by driving a van into pedestrians on the bridge and then jumping out to launch a stabbing spree. Over 45 people were injured in the terrifying incident. The Israeli Prime Minister is on a diplomatic tour in Liberia, but he still took the time to condemn the atrocity.
These terrorists worship death. They murder indiscriminately, but they will not frighten us. They will not terrorize us. They will only harden our resolve to defeat them. And together here in Africa, in the Middle East, and Europe, everywhere, together we will defeat them faster. But our goal here is not merely to join forces to fight the bad, but to work together to advance the good.
Liberia has had its own experience with political violence. Former warlord Charles Taylor shelled civilian targets during the 2003 civil war that led to his ousting. Israeli Gal Gadot's performance in Wonder Woman is warming the hearts of audiences worldwide, but it sounds like Jordan won't be joining in on the fun, and it's all because the actress proudly served in the Israeli Defense Forces. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the scoop, obviously, because we know how much you love Gal Gadot.
We have we have an understanding.
A special connection.
Yeah, it's more one-sided. Like, really, I just have the understanding.
Yeah, I think we're all aware of that here in the office. But let's talk a little bit about, what's going on. This film racked in a crazy amount.
$103.1 million.
Right, into American box offices. But now we're seeing another nation try to boycott this.
Yeah,
and why
Jordan.
Is that the case?
So Jordan, which is interesting too, because Jordan and Israel signed a peace treaty in 1994,
right.
And yet many Jordanians on the street still have this anti-Zionist regime mentality. And so, anything Israel, they kind of just reject.
So I guess we're going to have to wait and see if this actually happens, but let's check out your report first.
One Jordanian group against normalization with Israel said that they, quote, remind the Jordanians of their obligation to boycott the film, and we refuse to be partners to the crimes of the Zionists and to increase their profits from this film. The Arab audience will not be involved in projects that represent Zionism and the Israeli army, end quote. Lebanon, which is still technically at war with Israel, banned the film outright a few days ago, in protest of Gal Gadot's Israeli heritage, having little concern with whether or not she was a soldier at all. Gadot has indeed been proud of her Israeli and military background, however. She's publicly supported the IDF on social media and in interviews. As for the film's reception elsewhere, the box office take was estimated at $103.1 million over the opening weekend and $223 million worldwide.
There's nothing better than a shady tree on a hot, sunny day, but what if the tree had a water fountain, phone charging ports, and even free Wi-Fi? The Israeli firm Sologic has developed a solar energy tree in time for World Environment Day, and it's been planted in Nevers, France. Locals are now able to bask in the shade of its solar panels, charge their phones in its sun-powered USB ports, and treat their dogs to a refreshing drink from its water trough. Sologic says the e-tree is an ecological structure that produces green energy and provides a place of comfort and energy. At night, the tree's solar panels, which resemble square leaves, light up, making it a welcoming place to rest on a late-night stroll. Those familiar with Shel Silverstein's classic children's book are calling the e-tree the solar giving tree, so let's hope that no one chops this one down.
Now, in an incredible new discovery that is rewriting human history as we know it, The Israeli Antiquities Authority has just revealed that Neanderthals conducted much of their life out in the open landscape. More specifically, Neanderthals in the Levant were not just simple cavemen, as they've come to be known. According to the press release, quote, "The study focused on the skeletal remains of 2 human individuals from the open-air site of Ein Kashish on the banks of the Kishon stream in northern Israel. The analyses show that these bones represent the first Neanderthal remains outside caves in the Levant and are among the very few of such finds worldwide. The remains were dated to the late Middle Paleolithic period between 70,000 and 60,000 years ago by Dr. Naomi Porat from the Geological Survey of Israel." End quote. These new findings call into question much that we thought we knew about our early ancestry. Among the chief theories put under the microscope is the story of how the Neanderthals died out. The popular theory is that they had a difficult time adapting to the new climate at that time period. The study also adds tremendous amounts of color to the picture of the Neanderthals' cohabitation with early modern humanity. One thing is for sure, though, according to this study, quote, "Despite possible genetic flow between Neanderthal and early Homo sapiens populations and climatic fluctuations, the Neanderthals in the Levant were a resilient population that survived successfully in the region when modern humans reached it, again, some 60,000 years ago." End quote.
New York City's Fifth Avenue played host yesterday to roughly 40,000 people from over 250 organizations, all for the annual Celebrate Israel or Israel Day parade. ILTV's Ron Jacobson had the opportunity to attend the parade this year, and he sent us the scoop.
Every first Sunday in June, New York shows its love to the state of Israel with the Israel Parade, closing down Fifth Avenue, 40,000 marches, and over 300,000 people on the sidelines. That's real love.
Fifth Avenue in New York City was a sight to see, and it was all because of the 2017 Israel Parade. Religious, secular, gay, straight, old, young, you name it. Almost every Israel supporter in the city was there to celebrate the country, but let's just say that 2 very real camels stole the show. The JCRC is responsible for putting the parade together every year, and Michael Miller is its chief executive officer.
The enthusiasm on the avenue is just unbelievable. And every year I look forward to it with all the challenges that a big parade like this poses. This is really something that makes you feel proud to be Jewish and proud to be a supporter of Israel.
Ambassador Dani Dayan serves as Consul General of the State of Israel in New York, and he was almost speechless because of the love he felt in the city.
It's incredible. I am still in my first year in New York, so everything is my first. And I was looking forward for this day since I arrived here, and it didn't disappoint me by one bit.
Over at Midtown's Dream Hotel, ILTV had the chance to simultaneously attend the launch of the new website 4IL and app ActIL, which is working to combat the boycott, divestments, and sanctions movement against Israel.
I think it's not only about the Jewish communities. I think that you will find here many people from everywhere that feels that they support Israel, and then they want to show the world that they support Israel.
The Celebrate Israel parade actually began all the way back in 1965 as an impromptu walk. It wasn't until later that it became an annual event to celebrate the nation, rain or shine. And given that this June marks the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem, it was no wonder that Jerusalem was one of the biggest themes of the event, and that Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barakat was one of the stars of the evening.
Well, today I marched the streets of New York with Mayor de Blasio and a few hundreds of thousands of people that participated either in the march or spectators. And the love and the warm hug I and we received, Israel in general, and Jerusalem specifically, is second to none. I think everyone here in the United States recognizes and appreciates that we cherish each other, Israel, United States, Israel. and respect for the holy city of Jerusalem.
And so the 53rd annual Israel Parade and the inaugural Shimon Peres Day in New York have come to an end, leaving behind a trail of love for the state of Israel.
That's it for this week's Roundup. Tune in next Friday for our next episode of This Week in Israel. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv.